And now that we have them out of the packaging, let's get a good closer look at the figures. I apologize ahead of time. This may drag on a little bit depending on how much I ramble. I'll try to do this as quick as possible because there's a lot I want to cover. If we look first of all at the size comparison between the two figures, now this of course is the Movie Maniacs Series 5, and then this is the Cult Classics. You'll notice that the Cult Classics exoskeleton is a little bit taller than the Movie Maniacs. Not by much, but he definitely has a larger head, and I think that probably adds to the reason why he's a little bit taller. Also, we get a closer look at the figure. Now this is the Cult Classics. I've already lost what I was going to talk about. I'm not a big fan of the mask. Like, the head itself isn't too bad. I'll compare it over to the Movie Maniacs Series 5. One thing I like, and they don't seem to do it anymore, is the fact that whenever I think of the exoskeleton, I always think of the teeth exposed and the mouth closed. Lately, and Playmates does this as well, is that they open the mouth on the figure. And I really can't figure out why, because in nowhere have we seen in the movie that the exoskeleton's mouths are open. So points I would have to give first of all to this figure, because if you look at the two, this one's a lot more movie accurate, at least in the way it's designed. Also, if we look at the side here, there's a lot more detail that's been put into the Movie Maniacs figure than what was put into the Cult Classics. Like I said, the head, of course, is a little bit larger. Points have to be given to the Cult Classics for having the red eyes. Now, there's red eyes granted in the Movie Maniacs, but it's much more predominant in the Cult Classics, so I have to give points for that. Detailing-wise, it should be pretty obvious when you're looking at this video that there's a hell of a lot more detail that's been put into the Movie Maniacs than the Cult Classics. And it's really surprising too, because the Movie Maniacs, this figure is, what, 5 years old? Is it 6 years old? And this figure itself is probably about 2 years old. This figure itself looks a lot chunkier versus what this one is. The downside to having this more sleek is I just find it's a very flimsy figure. I mean, it has articulation where it needs it, and but it just feels like it's going to fall apart. This one is a little more substantial when you're moving it. In the way of the articulation, the Cult Classics exoskeleton does have articulation in the shoulders. He does have it in the arms. He has some in his hand. The hand does rotate. His head does turn, but not by much. And it's the same problem that this one has. It's just because of all the pistons that have been added to the neck, it does hinder any movement. Now the mouth does close, which I just figured out now. It does close, which is nice, but I still think I like this one better. Now this one, of course, doesn't move. This is fully fixed. But hey, there you go. I mean, we learned something new together. Also, in articulation, the waist does move, but again, not by much. There's articulation, I believe there's articulation in the knee, as well as the foot. Now the foot does rotate just by a slight bit, and then of course there's articulation in the toe. One other thing I'd like to point out too is the fact that on both figures, it's not just enough that they've given it articulation in the joints, but all the pistons can slide in and out of the figure. So you get a good feel that this is a piece like a machine. Overall, nice figure. Both problems with the figure is that, and this one I don't think has it. Oh, this one actually doesn't have it. If you look though at the, I'll put that guy to the side here. If you look at the Movie Maniacs figure, one problem I always have with the figure is that these little tubings that connect the torso to the shoulders always slide out from that area. Articulation in this figure, there is a little more movement in the head than there is in this figure, but again not by much, just because of all the additional wiring and stuff that they've added. There is the swivel to the arm as well as articulation in the shoulder, and then there's a slight bit, and I mean a slight bit, almost to the point I don't want to move it too much, that I think this is going to break right off. And I think I just dropped a piece. That's one thing you'll actually find with these figures. As soon as I took this guy out of the package, I already noticed that a piece fell out, and I had to play where was the piece on the figure. Turned out it was actually from the leg here. But again, it's got the same thing that the Cult Classics have, is that there's all these movable pistons that can go in and out of the tubing here. Which is actually nice. I mean, it's a nice added detail that they've done to the figure. There is no articulation to really speak of. I mean, there's a slight bit in the waist, and there's articulation in the knee, and nothing in the foot. So, I mean, this is one solid piece, whereas the Cult Classics at least has articulation in the foot. And just move the camera here down a bit. In the way of accessories, I think this is where the Cult Classic gets added points for. If we first look at the accessories that come with the movie Maniacs, you get a poster, well, a standee, I guess, that has a poster from the movie. Back when McFarlane was making movie Maniacs, you found like a lot of these figures had these stands. They're not bad for showpieces, but I kind of prefer what they do nowadays with figures. There's also a matching skull base. It doesn't look like it attaches at all to the standee. It's just a separate piece. The most disappointing part to this figure, because I would say so far my preference is this figure over this one, just because of the added detail that was done to this one. Where it doesn't get the points though is his weapon. It's so small. Look at the size of that, eh? In the movie, this was quite a large weapon that was used. I mean, we saw it very predominant in Terminator 2, especially in the opener. So, I mean, that's a bit disappointing. The figure does hold the weapon, although not well. You kind of end up getting this kind of... I mean, it holds it to the sense that it's just basically a claw, and then you just slide it into it. But where it differs on the Cult Classics is, look at the size of this guy. That is the way it should have been. I mean, it's... I would almost say it's a little too large, but at least it's more appropriate to, you know, what it looked like in the movie. If we put this on the figure here. Now, the one thing you'll notice is this hand is open. It also does give you a closed hand. And I'm going to have to speed this up because I'm already getting to that 10-minute mark here. But it does actually have... The added hand does allow you to hold the rifle. I won't put it in the figure right now, but one other accessory, and this is the coolest of the bunch, is it comes with a skull mound. As you'll see, it has a tricycle, as you saw in the opener of the movie, and then a slew of skulls. So I mean, great detail put to this. It's nice because if you have a lot of these figures like I do, which is so sad, but if you have a lot of these figures, I mean, you can make a whole diorama just by the bases that came with this figure. Overall, I have to really move this along here. Overall, nice figure with the Cult Classics. I would almost say, in the way of likeness, I almost prefer the movie Maniacs, at least in the head, even though it feels like a flimsier piece, like a flimsier figure. But there you have a comparison between the two exoskeletons, and with that I'll wrap this up. Tune in next time, and I will see you guys later.